I'm an alcoholic, so it would be a kiss of death for me to start drinking again.
Did you know that some of the biggest names in music history had a notorious reputation for being constantly drunk? Stick around as we delve into the wild lives of 35 rock and roll musicians who couldn't put down the bottle. 35. Anthony Kiedis. Alright, let's dive into number 35 on our list, Anthony Kiedis, the frontman of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Kiedis, known for his dynamic stage presence and charismatic persona, has been open about his struggles with addiction over the years. In a candid conversation with Joe Rogan, Kiedis revealed that his initial experimentation with hard drugs was partly fueled by a fascination with danger. Starting off with alcohol and marijuana as a teenager, Kiedis eventually delved into harder substances like cocaine and heroin. He admitted that he believed these drugs could somehow make him feel better, but in reality, they were slowly destroying him from the inside out. Kiedis alluded to underlying mental health issues, reasoning that he felt cocaine and heroin were going to make me well, but it was just killing me. Kiedis' journey with addiction took a sobering turn when he witnessed the impact of heroin on his bandmate, Hillel Slovak, who tragically died from an overdose in 1988. Although Slovak's death wasn't the sole reason for Kiedis seeking treatment, it certainly served as a wake-up call for the frontman to confront his own demons and seek help. 34. David Bowie. Moving on to number 34, we have the legendary David Bowie.
Very hard to have relationships when you're doing drugs and drinking. For me personally, anyway.
Bowie, often regarded as a pioneer in the music industry, left an indelible mark on the cultural landscape with his innovative music and boundary-pushing creativity. However, behind the glittering facade of fame, Bowie struggled with his own demons, particularly with substance abuse. Bowie's journey with drugs began during the vibrant 1960s London scene, where experimentation was rampant. As his career soared to new heights, so did his reliance on various substances, most notably cocaine. Reports from the 1970s suggest that Bowie's diet consisted mainly of milk, peppers, and cocaine, a cocktail that fueled his creativity but also fueled his addiction. The excesses of fame, coupled with Bowie's addictive personality, led him down a dark path of alcoholism and drug dependence. 33. Isaac Brock. And rounding off our first trio of troubled musicians, we have Isaac Brock, the multi-talented lead vocalist and instrumentalist of the American indie rock group Modest Mouse. Brock's struggles with addiction have been well documented, with the musician openly admitting to extensive drug use and alcoholism. From meth to marijuana, acid to crack, Brock's experimentation with drugs knew no bounds, reflecting a period of his life characterized by an up-for-anything mentality. However, in the wake of his 2004 release, The Good Times Are Killing Me, Brock began to confront his addiction head-on, acknowledging the destructive nature of his habits through his music. 32. Adam Clayton. Now let's turn our attention to Adam Clayton, the talented bass guitarist of the iconic rock band U2. While Clayton is celebrated for his musical prowess, he hasn't been immune to the pitfalls of substance abuse. In August 1989, Clayton made headlines when he was arrested in Dublin for carrying a small amount of marijuana. This incident shed light on Clayton's struggles with drugs, but it wasn't the end of his battle. Throughout his career, Clayton has also faced challenges with alcohol, with his problems reaching a critical point during the Zoo TV tour. On November 26, 1993, Clayton's alcohol consumption left him so hungover that he was unable to perform at the night's show in Sydney, a dress rehearsal for their Zoo TV concert film. In his absence, bass duties were taken over by Clayton's technician, Stuart Morgan. 31. Alice Cooper. Next up, we have the legendary shock rocker Alice Cooper. Despite his larger-than-life persona and iconic status in the music industry, Cooper's journey has been marred by struggles with addiction, particularly to cocaine and alcohol. During the mid-1980s, Cooper found himself teetering on the brink of destruction due to his crippling addiction. He's previously discussed the moment in the early 80s when he realized he was in danger, telling Page Six, "I woke up one morning and I threw up blood, and that's how I kind of knew it was over. My wife grabbed my ear and said, 'Hey, the party's over.'" 30. Eminem. Next, but certainly not least, we have the rap sensation Eminem. Born Marshall Bruce Mathers III, Eminem rose to fame in the late 1990s with his groundbreaking album, the Slim Shady LP. However, behind the scenes, Eminem was grappling with his own demons, alcohol and drug addiction. Despite his skyrocketing success, Eminem's battle with addiction reached a critical point, culminating in a near-fatal overdose that shook him to the core. He even had an overdose that nearly cost him his life. "My addiction didn't start in my early days when I was coming up. We used to drink 40s on the porch and just battle rap each other. My drug usage started at the beginning of that first album," he explained. "I didn't take anything hard until I got famous." 29. Brian Philip Welch. Brian Philip Welch, better known as Head, the lead guitarist, co-founder of the rock band Korn, broke a lot of fans' hearts as he suddenly decided to pack his bags and completely leave the band back in 2005. This was also a shock for his bandmates, as they were currently one of the domineering metal rock bands in that era, earning multi-platinum record albums. This, he decided, was the most reasonable decision at that time for the guitarist, as he was having a serious battle with the use of substances, including methamphetamine, Xanax, sleeping pills, and alcohol. While Korn continued to succeed in its run, the out-of-control party world of rock and roll quickly got in the head of its members. And while the world was seeing Brian Welch as the rock star who had it all, the lead guitarist claimed that he was dying inside. A kind of pain only drugs and alcohol can numb and take away. While the situation seemed to have little to no effect on the career of Head in the music industry, it wreaked an irreversible destructive effect on his marriage. 28. James Hetfield. James Hetfield is a singer, songwriter, and guitarist. He is an original member, lead singer, and rhythm guitarist of the band Metallica. At the height of their fame in the 1980s, Metallica were at the very center of this spinning wheel, and for lead vocalist and guitarist James Hetfield, it became the source of a crippling addiction to alcohol. After decades of nursing his addiction, Hetfield checked into a rehab clinic in 2004. For 15 years, Hetfield remained sober, but in 2019, things took a turn for the worse. News spread that Hetfield had checked himself into a rehab clinic and canceled an upcoming Australian-New Zealand tour set to take place in the autumn. So, shortly after the news broke, Hetfield's bandmates released a statement explaining the situation. "As most of you probably know, our brother James has been struggling with addiction on and off for many years. He has now, unfortunately, had to re-enter a treatment program to work on his recovery again." 27. Elton John. Elton John is one of the greatest musicians of the 20th century. His records have generated over $300 million in sales, which makes him one of the best-selling musicians of all time. People know him best from his 1972 internationally renowned song, Rocket Man. Like many musicians and rock stars, John developed a severe addiction problem when it came to drugs and alcohol. He lived the party lifestyle of sex, drugs, and rock and roll until he was in his early 40s. He had a plethora of addictions. Drugs and alcohol were only part of his problem. He also had sex and shopping addictions too. A lot of these temptations stem from several emotional and psychological issues, such as anger problems and bulimia. 26. Ivan Moody. Ivan L. Moody is an American singer and songwriter who is the lead vocalist of heavy metal band Five Finger Death Punch. Moody recalls at the peak of his addiction, his bandmates would no longer speak to him, nor would family members or friends he'd grown up with. Moody previously said that he nearly died due to an alcohol-related seizure and woke up surrounded by EMTs and his daughter holding him while crying. He also admitted that he went to rehab 5 times. 25. Trent Reznor. He was born May 17, 1965, and is known as a singer, songwriter, musician, composer, and record producer. He is also the founder, lead singer, and major songwriter of the band 9 Inch Nails. Reznor began drinking, then using hard drugs, culminating in an accidental heroin overdose in 2000 that nearly killed him. "I wasn't the guy who aged 12 had a beer and turned into a werewolf," he says. "It kind of crept up. I wasn't prepared for the transformative effect of fame and recognition." 24. Ringo Starr. After the Beatles broke up, Starr initially had some success. He had 8 consecutive top 10 singles in the US between 1971 and 1975, including It Don't Come Easy and Back Off Boogaloo. Throughout the decade, he put out 7 solo albums. But then came the 80s, and things started to go downhill. He began drinking and using drugs in excess. "I got involved with a lot of different medications, and you can hear my records go downhill as the amount of medication went up," said Starr, according to the New Zealand Herald. What's more, Starr has no memory of some of the coolest musical experiences he's ever had. Starr knew he was in trouble. There was a point where the drummer was consuming 16 bottles of wine a day. 23. Corey Taylor. Corey Taylor has recalled how he couldn't sing in key amid his alcohol addiction that saw him, quote, "fucking 10 chicks a night and doing horrible shit." The Slipknot and Stone Sour rocker, 49, blames his lack of self-love and confidence on his battle with booze addiction and admitted his bad habits took a toll on both his mental health and his ability to do his job as frontman. 3 times married Corey got sober after his first marriage to Scarlett Stone ended in 2007. However, he relapsed and finally got sober fully in 2010. Though he admits he fights every day not to revert back to his old ways. 22. Steven Tyler. Steven Tyler is a singer, songwriter, and musician. Also plays the harmonica, piano, and drums. He is the lead singer in the rock band Aerosmith. Tyler previously discussed his struggles with addiction with GQ magazine, stating that drugs were more or less the thing to do as a rock star in the 70s. Heavy drug and alcohol use was prevalent amongst many bands during this time, with Taylor stating that hardly any bands even knew what being sober meant. Tyler started using drugs in the 1960s as a teenager, but the rock star lifestyle caught up with the singer during his early years with Aerosmith. Tyler made various attempts to get sober. He enrolled himself in a handful of rehabs, attended 12-step meetings, and had a supportive group of friends and family by his side. However, relapse was unfortunately common for him during that period. There were various triggers that led to a relapse for Tyler, from breaking up with a girlfriend to getting hooked on prescription pain medication after a surgery. 21. Tommy Vext. Tommy Vext is a singer and songwriter, the lead singer of Bad Wolves, Snot, Divine Heresy, and Westfield Massacre. Vext has faced many challenges that may have contributed to his suicidal intent, including his history with substance dependence and violence. Vext was surrounded by substance dependence and violence not only at home, but also in his neighborhood of Garrettson Beach, Brooklyn. The prevalence of substance use contributed to Vext starting to drink and use drugs at an early age. I probably started drinking at 12, 13, but in my neighborhood, that was normal. 20. Derek Whibley. Derek Whibley is a Canadian singer, songwriter, musician, and record producer. The lead singer, rhythm guitarist, keyboardist, main songwriter, and producer of the rock band Sum 41. During his past 28 years with the band, Whibley, who released his 8th and final Sum 41 album, Heaven X Hell, on March 29th, has lived the life of a true rock star. Partying, worldwide tours, high-profile breakups, and a battle with alcohol addiction that landed him in the hospital with kidney and liver failure included. 19. Zakk Wylde. Zakk Wylde is a singer, songwriter, and musician. lead guitarist for Ozzy Osbourne and the founder, lead guitarist, and lead singer of the band Black Label Society. Zakk Wylde has said he didn't have a drinking problem until he joined Ozzy Osbourne's band at the age of 19 in 1988 and then tried to keep up with the Black Sabbath icon. "I was 19, right before I turned 20, he said. "That's when my drinking problem began. I drank until then, and then it was just double fisting from that point on." 18. Neil Young. Neil Young is a Canadian singer and songwriter. He also plays the guitar, harmonica, reed organ, and crystallophone. Young has received several Grammy and Juno Awards. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inducted him twice, in 1995 as a solo artist and in 1997 as a member of Buffalo Springfield. In 2023, Rolling Stone named Young number 30 on their list of 250 greatest guitarists of all time. Young is also on Rolling Stone's list of the 100 greatest musical artists. Neil Young spent decades drinking and smoking pot and writing music under the influence. In 2012, he revealed that he'd been sober for a year. "I did it for 40 years. Now I want to see what it's like to not do it. It's just a different perspective." The 66-year-old rocker, who suffers from epilepsy and had a brain aneurysm in 2005, took the advice to quit from his doctor. 17. Trey Anastasio. Ernest Joseph Trey Anastasio III is an American guitarist and singer-songwriter best known as the lead guitarist of the rock band Phish, which he co-founded in 1983. Trey Anastasio opens up about the drug and alcohol addiction that brought him to a low point shortly before Phish called it quits in 2004. Trey Anastasio found it nearly impossible to grasp the effects of his addiction. The Phish frontman described it as mountains of fun, nothing but fun. But then it wasn't fun. Anastasio was arrested in 2006. "It wasn't a good picture," he noted. "I couldn't see at the time how much I had lost. Close to everything." 16. Stevie Nicks. At the age of 27, Stevie Nicks ascended to the role of the definitive figure in the British-American rock band Fleetwood Mac, earning her the title of the Queen Bee. She found herself ensnared in the depths of drug dependency, succumbing to the allure of cocaine, alcohol, quaaludes for sleep, and cigarettes. These substances initiated a cascade of detrimental effects, causing her health to deteriorate. Nosebleeds, onstage falls, blackouts, and perilous semi-overdoses plagued her existence. The intoxicating descent had begun. Her pace of drug consumption decelerated only when her doctor's grave caution resonated. The enduring, irreversible mental and physical harm, coupled with the ominous prospect of a brain hemorrhage or untimely demise, was undeniable. 15. Duff McKagan. Guns N' Roses bassist Duff McKagan developed a dependence on drugs and alcohol that engulfed his entire life. "I was floating through life," he explained to Men's Journal in 2022, "and I couldn't think straight because my brain was drowning in drugs and alcohol." By the time McKagan was in his late 20s, he knew something needed to change. In 1994, when he was 30, his pancreas burst. 14. Jason Isbell. Jason Isbell had struggled with cocaine and alcohol abuse when he was in his 20s and performing with drive-by truckers. Back when he was drinking, he recorded 3 albums with the southern rock progressives the Drive-By Truckers and 3 solo albums of alternatively tender and raucous country-inflected rock. The first album he made after getting sober, Southeastern, from 2013, a raw chronicle of his boozy rock bottom and fragile redemption, was his critical and commercial breakthrough. But the long shadow of his addictions has continued to haunt his music since. 13. Slash. Saul Hudson, known professionally as Slash, is a British-American musician who serves as the lead guitarist of the hard rock band Guns N' Roses, with whom he achieved worldwide success in the late 1980s and early 1990s. Slash has received critical acclaim and is considered one of the greatest guitarists in history. Slash has a well-documented issue with heavy drinking and drug abuse. But while he used alcohol, cocaine, pills, and heroin, he said that heroin was the drug that he had the most addiction issues with. That being said, he struggled with both drug and alcohol abuse. He described how he came from a family of drinkers. The drinking culture didn't help. 12. Joe Walsh. Best known as a member of the rock band Eagles, Joe Walsh's 5-decade career has also included solo work and stints in 2 other successful rock bands, James Gang and Ringo Starr in his all-star band. He was also part of the New Zealand band Herbs. Walsh, who sought refuge in music after a lonely childhood and who battled alcoholism and cocaine addiction as an adult. As his star rose, so too did Walsh's dependence on alcohol and drugs. Though he sang lines like, "I go to parties sometimes until 4, it's hard to leave when you can't find the door," with a wink and a nudge, substance-fueled setbacks weren't so far from the truth. When the Eagles broke up in 1980, Walsh struggled to make sense of the split, and it sent him spiraling further. Though he continued to make solo records, his condition worsened, thanks in part to severe stage fright that he soon found was eased by alcohol. 11. Tom Waits. Thomas Allen Waits is an American musician, composer, songwriter, and actor. His lyrics often focus on the underbelly of society and are delivered in his trademark deep, gravelly voice. So when Tom Waits was introduced to Charles Bukowski, it was never going to be a quiet, sedate, sober affair. The two are born carousers and rabble-rousers, and soon got down to imbibing industrial quantities of alcohol. Much of Tom Waits' earlier work finds him at the bar in the wee small hours of a lonely Saturday night. The songwriter quickly found himself struggling as he regaled World Magazine in an archive interview. "It's like when I met Keith Richards. You try to match them drink for drink, but you're a novice. You're a child. You're drinking with a roaring pirate. Whatever you know about holding your liquor, you'd better let go of it right now," he recalled. 10. Nikki Sixx. Nikki Sixx is an American musician best known as the co-founder, bassist, and primary songwriter of the heavy metal band Motley Crue, being the only member to remain throughout their entire history. The Motley Crue bassist has infamous tales of drinking and drugging. There was a time when people wouldn't have expected Sixx, now age 61, to even be alive in 2020. Sixx overdosed on heroin multiple times in the 80s, most famously on December 23, 1987, when he was declared clinically dead for 2 minutes before being revived. But now, Sixx has been clean for nearly 20 years now. 9. Mike McCready. Michael McCready is an American musician known for being a founding member and lead guitarist of Pearl Jam. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as part of Pearl Jam in 2017 alongside the 3 other founding members. Like many others from the Seattle grunge scene, McCready has had 2 different bouts with substance abuse. The first came during the production of Pearl Jam's 1994 album Vitalogy, when McCready was fighting drug and alcohol addiction. McCready's second bout came during the sessions for Pearl Jam's 2000 album Binaural. 8. Jerry Cantrell.
For alcoholics and addicts, it's one of the side effects is it's kind of hard to receive love, so it's
Jerry Fulton Cantrell Jr. was born on March 18, 1966, and is an American musician, singer-songwriter, and guitarist best known as the founder, lead guitarist, co-lead vocalist, and main songwriter of the rock band Alice in Chains. Cantrell is a recovering addict and alcoholic and has been sober since 2003. Getting fucked up is fun, and that's why people do it, especially when you're young. It's a part of life, Alice in Chains guitarist Jerry Cantrell explained to Grammy.com in 2019. It's a part of a lot of people's experience. but it comes with a price. He's familiar with the price. 2 of his bandmates died because of their addictions. 7. Ann Wilson. Ann Dustin Wilson is an American singer and songwriter best known as the lead singer of the rock band Heart. Wilson has been a member of Heart since the early 1970s. Her younger sister, Nancy Wilson, is also a member of the band. As a child, Wilson was bullied for being overweight. Fearing that Heart's lead singer's physique would compromise the band's image, record company executives and band members began pressuring her to lose weight. Wilson stated she began suffering from stress-related panic attacks due to the negative publicity surrounding her weight. She underwent adjustable gastric band weight loss surgery in January 2002 after what she called a lifelong battle with her weight. In November 2009, Wilson collapsed. Doctors found that she had liver disease resulting from alcoholism. While she had stopped using other drugs after adopting her daughter, she had increased her alcohol consumption. 6. Lou Gramm. Lou Gramm is an American singer and songwriter. He is best known as co-founder and lead vocalist of the rock band Foreigner from 1976 to 1990, and again from 1992 to 2003, during which time the band had numerous successful albums and singles. Like any good rock story, Gramm's is full of ups and downs. He sold millions of records and became an iconic radio voice, but his relationship with Foreigner's Mick Jones has often been strained, and at the same time, Gramm suffered from drug and alcohol addiction. Then, in his mid-40s, he was told he had an inoperable brain tumor. Gramm survived that brush with death and remained in the music business, both with the band that he led to arenas around the world and as a solo artist. 5. Pete Townshend. Peter Townshend is the co-founder, guitarist, second lead vocalist, and principal songwriter of The Who, one of the most influential rock bands of the 1960s and 1970s. Townshend was married in 1966 and had 2 children, but he had his own troubles with alcohol and he moved out on his family. He got hooked on Ativan, a prescription drug, and admits that he barely survived the experience. The late 70s proved a double whammy for the Let My Love Open the Door singer and his surviving bandmates. In 1979, just 1 year after losing Keith Moon, the group was thrust into an unwanted spotlight after a crush outside a Cincinnati Who concert killed 11 people. In the midst of the tragedy, Townshend turned not only to music, but to other vices, namely alcohol. Though he was able to quit drinking for 11 years in 1982, he turned back to the bottle in 1993 before eventually finding sobriety. 4. Ronnie Wood. Ronald David Wood is an English rock musician best known as an official member of the Rolling Stones since 1975, as well as a member of Faces and the Jeff Beck Group. Cocaine, heroin, booze, freebasing, smoking pure cocaine. I went for it all, but it's the fags that are almost the hardest to kick. Even in my maddest days, I knew when to stop because there would be a thought in my head. I want to do this and that, and I can't if I keep going. Drugs gave him the confidence to go on stage and feel invincible. In the early days, it was booze, and then it was drugs. He could go on stage off his head and never miss a note, as could Richards. I don't regret any of it, he says. 3. James Taylor. James Vernon Taylor is an American singer-songwriter and guitarist. A 6-time Grammy Award winner, he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2000. Taylor achieved his breakthrough in 1970 with the number 3 single Fire and Rain, and had his first number 1 hit in 1971 with his recording of You've Got a Friend, written by Carole King in the same year. Taylor spent time in a psychiatric hospital when he was in high school and lost a brother to alcoholism. His father was also an alcoholic. Joel O'Brien introduced him to heroin. Thus began an addiction to opiates that lasted for the better part of 20 years. While James Taylor successfully kicked his heroin addiction in the early 1970s, he soon became reliant on methadone, a sometimes addictive opiate that's used to help heroin users wean themselves off that harder drug. Taylor used it from the mid-1970s up until 1983, when he decided he needed to free himself of all intense substances. The 1982 overdose-related death of his friend John Belushi is what inspired his big life change. 2. Phil Collen. Philip Kenneth Collen is an English musician who is best known as the co-lead guitarist for the rock band Def Leppard. These days, Def Leppard guitarist Phil Collen is one of the fittest guys in rock and roll, but it wasn't always the case thanks to his old drinking habits. It was getting out of hand. I tried to do the social drinking thing and I couldn't do it. I would start with the odd glass of wine, and then it would be shots of Jack Daniels by the end of the week. So I thought there could be a problem, and I stopped completely. Colin says that while there was some fun that came with all the partying they did back in the day, there were also some drawbacks. He says, "I just didn't like the fact that I stopped remembering things. I can remember borrowing Joe Elliott's car and leaving it parked sideways in the street and not remembering anything. Just crazy stuff." 1. Dave Grohl.
Way too heavy. We've never talked about that, ever. It's been 20 years, we still haven't talked about it.
David Eric Grohl is an American musician. He is the founder of the rock band Foo Fighters, for which he is the lead singer, guitarist, and principal songwriter. Prior to forming Foo Fighters, he was the drummer of the grunge rock band Nirvana from 1990 to 1994. Dave Grohl revealed the heavy drinking session he enjoys before going on stage every night with the Foo Fighters. The frontman owned up to downing 4 beers and more than 6 shots in the hour leading up to stage time. Grohl says he wouldn't recommend this pre-show ritual to other musicians, but fuck it, it works for me. Just remember that the guitarist is 49 years old, is a father of 3, and has openly admitted to the fact that he has never taken cocaine, heroin, or speed. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out our other content for more fascinating insights into the world of rock and roll. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and ring the bell to stay updated on all our latest videos. Until next time, rock on!